Started talking and then introduced me and said, "Oh, and yes, and this is Ed Clark." And I was like, wow, that was so odd.
And so in Paris, there must have been about 4 schools: Ferdinand Leger, Julian, Andre Lot, and the Académie Le Grand Chimère, and the Beaux-Arts. Well, I didn't need the Beaux-Arts. I'd already been to the damn Beaux-Arts. That's Chicago Art Institute, the similar school, structured. So I chose the Académie Grand Chimère because it was a laid-back. I realized I needed the studio desperately, the way I paint. Kind of, even then, kind of expressionist way with paint going everywhere. You couldn't do it in the hotel room. I saw, someone told me go look at this place on 22 Rue de l'Homme. No one would have taken it.
The access to that was an outside wooden stairwell going straight up. You had to walk straight up to the 4th floor.
So there are distinct periods you can look at in Clark's work and see what he's going through, see what information that he's bringing together. And later on, periods where you see both examples of analytic thinking and synthetic thinking is going together, where he's all these parts and pieces and dissected is being put back together and dictated toward specifics of symbol.
Okay, this is somebody who had a very strong traditional academic art training. The Chicago Art Institute, a bastion of a certain kind of, fairly traditional figurative painting when he was a student there. And when he went to Paris in the 50s, he was still a figurative painter. The struggle for him was, in a sense, to catch up to the early 20th century modernist experiments.
And Ed would always come to my schools and critique me and show me the best routes and how to get there.
I said, well, I paint, he's being facetious, when I'm inspired, an inspiration. He says, look, he said, you should be at your easel. At this point, you're like 9 to 5. So you never know, the inspiration might hit you while you're sitting in a cafe and you don't have an easel in front of you, right?
I'd say he wanted to get the big sweep. He was always looking for the big sweep. And, well, he uses Broom like you would a brush.
We know that Jackson Pollock was probably one of the first to paint on the floor. I painted, but for the same reason he must have painted, gravity, probably influenced by an artist called Nicolas de Stael, who, when I first saw his work, I didn't even know it was abstract. I mean, it was figurative. I just saw it, the surface was interesting. The only thing I'd seen that looked different. Then I saw in the paper a few weeks later, it was football. I didn't even know that. And then I began to kind of just experiment with that. I began to like the way it was painted more than what I was painting. I usually say, well, would you ask Miles Davis, what does that mean? What does that mean? And then Louis Armstrong said something like, yes, if you got to ask, I forgot punchline what he said. If you got to ask, you don't know, something like that, you won't know.
So with abstract expressionism, you've got a kind of letting go of all that careful stuff and just putting the paint down there.
He gets involved with early Brada group artists. He was a founding member of that group. Man, there were 2 big-scale art markets. The uptown art market is not to be confused with what was happening downtown. People showed to show their peers what they were doing, and with the hope of making a little money. Corporate galleries didn't make no money. Those galleries were kept open because of the artists themselves. The bigger uptown galleries were not necessarily opening their doors up wholeheartedly to second-generation abstract expressionists. And in particular, they wouldn't open up their doors to African-American second-generation anything. So Brada Gallery, being a cooperative gallery of local artists, became a very much wholesome atmosphere, and it sort of gave everybody a break on a grassroots level, and it was good for Clark.